And now we have some time for reflections, because we're a tight-knit community, and our community only runs on love and trust. Only those who feel spontaneously inspired because they feel grateful for the association, for the service, for the lifestyle, then can be truly steady. Otherwise, we go here and there. Rupa Goswami recommends that we take some time for guhyam akyati prichati. Share, in other words, sharing means caring, according to the Salvation Army. Yes?
Hare Krishna. Okay. I was reflecting on a point that you made earlier today in the class, which was don't change your natural inclinations and instead change your awareness so that you can direct those activities towards Lord Krishna. And I was feeling grateful that in spiritual service there's so much variety, and we can take practically anything of interest and offer it to Lord Krishna. And then the final step of that is cooperation, so that we can work together and bring all these various services together to serve the Lord together.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I've been reflecting a lot on a verse that actually Tejas taught me. It's from Bhagavatam. Tulayam lavernapi na swargam na punarbhavam bhagavat sangi sangasya martya nam kimutashashaha, which means that a moment's association of a devotee of the Lord is worth more than going to swarga or any material benefits. And I was just reflecting on that this week a lot and feeling really grateful for your association and everybody's association, all the devotees. And I just want to pray to continue to stay in the association of devotees after hearing that verse.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I think last week I went biking, and before that there was a small plant that I accidentally trampled over. And when I went again this week, I saw that the plant was starting to die. And that taught me a couple things. One was that I thought back to Vaishnava Parad and how important it is that we should treat others. And I was also reflecting on the material world and how everything is temporary. And those are just two thoughts that I had from that.
Wow, beautiful.
Hare Krishna. I was reflecting over what Dhruta Prabhu was saying, where there's always divine and demoniac. And it's such an interesting point. And I read a purport regarding this. When Krishna was entering Dwarka, even the prostitutes came to offer their respects and obeisances. And Prabhupada writes in that purport that even in Dwarka, which is Krishna's city, he made this, they were still prostitutes. And one would ask, why is there a need for prostitutes in this wonderful city of Dwarka? And Prabhupada mentioned how everyone's an individual soul, and they have different kinds of capacities, and prohibition never works, even in Krishna city. And so there is always a place for liquor, for prostitutes, all these other kinds of sinful activities. It's managed by the government. It's not directly prohibited falsely, because they're still gonna go for it. And so if it's controlled in that way, it's nice. And I was just thinking how there's always divine and demoniac. You can never get full utopia, even if it's fully Krishna conscious. And it just gives a lot more perspective when we're in an organization like ISKCON, or even in our temples and so on, where we can't expect things to be completely perfect. Because even in Dwarka, which we would think is perfect, there were still these kinds of things that were going on, but it just was managed in their own ways.
Yeah, thank you, Brajaras Bhavana. Just to give a little context, we had been discussing a book called Knowledge Illusion. Brajaras Bhavana and a group of devotees had helped extract the important points, because I had a conversation with the person who wrote it. He was a professor from Brown University. And in preparation for that conversation, I had been talking to some of the BI, Bhaktivedanta Institute devotees and one of the thinkers in our movement, Jutta Karma Prabhu. And in our conversation, he was talking about how the devotees have been presenting papers at scientific conferences, and that I had made a side comment. I said, it's really nice to be able to carefully compose such thoughts into papers and present them, and present unassailable ideas. I use the word unassailable. And he smiled slightly, he stopped what he was saying, he said, actually, nothing is unassailable. He said, because there's always divine and demoniac nature, and even if you give a salient point, somebody may take the opposite side because that's their nature. They want to drag it in a different direction, towards darkness. Thank you. Nice points. Very practical. Yes, now we're moving over to this side. Okay.
Yesterday, Devamrit Maharaj, he gave a really, really nice lecture, but one of the things I took away from his lecture was every time he said that he was a devotee, he would correct himself and he would say, I'm still trying to be a devotee. I really, really like that mentality because it's just a reminder to everybody that no matter how far we think we've come, there's always more to go. And it was just a reminder for me to zoom out and understand that I am just a little speck in this universe trying my hardest to go back to Krishna. And it was a nice reminder.
Just to add on to Geeta Priya's point, one word that particularly stood out to me in yesterday's verse was anujivana, which means dependent on the mercy of. And I've been reflecting a lot on that. And I know the term mercy case is often used, and I feel that I've always been dependent on the mercy of. And if I try to keep that mentality every day, then so much mercy can flow through rather than having expectations and all these other things that one may have.
Related to both of your points, I remember when Giriraj Maharaj was giving a remembrance of a godbrother who had made this spontaneous statement when somebody was appreciating him. He said, oh well, I'm just a mercy case. And he said, and that relates to what you said, to stay in that position to receive mercy, and to do that, one should consider oneself unworthy. It's what Kunti Devi says in the verse, Janmaishvarya Shrita Shibir, Enamanamadapuman Naivar Yavidatum Vai Twamakinchana Gocharam. That you have to feel a kinchana. Krishna, I don't have anything. And Prabhupada, in one of his talks about deity worship, you'll hear near the end of the lecture, when he's talking about the mood in which to offer something to Krishna. And Prabhupada's voice starts to crack. Anyone who listens to that talk, they'll also tear up, because it's an overwhelming humility. Actual humility is very overwhelming to hear. And it's like you said, it's very attractive when somebody is genuinely humble and keeps that mood. And Prabhupada said, when you bring something to Krishna, you should bring it in a humble mood. And he said, I'm very fallen and rotten, but I've brought you this, Krishna. And as he's saying that, I'm fallen and I'm rotten, then his voice cracks. You can tell that Prabhupada's emotional when he's doing that. And that brings out the essence of the feeling of Krishna consciousness, to approach Krishna with such humble feelings. Thank you. Yes. Yes. You? Okay, Sukeshwari, but she's pointing to somebody else, so I'm confused. Okay. All right. Who's next? Oh, yes, Prabhu. Please go ahead. We'll give you a microphone or your money back from tonight's talk.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So SB 1.8.25, I just found it really very deep, where Kunti Maharani says, you keep giving us problems so that we can see you, and by this way we can escape the cycle of birth and death. And I was like, wow. When problems come, we tend to run away from the problems. And here is Kunti Maharani asking for more problems so that she can see Krishna and, escape from the cycle of birth and death.
Prabhupada writes in the light of the Bhagavat that going back to Godhead is not a plaything. And there's not a way in which one can keep one foot in the material world and then try to put another foot in the spiritual world. There's a way that when one becomes ready to accept punishment, Prabhupada said, as the reward of the master, then you're qualified to approach Krishna in the spiritual world. Thank you very much for bringing that beautiful verse out. Sukeshri.
I was just thinking that even last time you had mentioned about, getting connected to, like today you were mentioning the same thing, like when we are talking about Kunti's prayers, you can connect with the character in Bhagavatam. So I've been thinking about that quite, because I would read Bhagavatam, I need to understand what happened, the story or the philosophy behind it. But looking at it in this angle changes the whole scenario. As if it's like, when I used to very ardently watch movies, when, my Guru Maharaj also said everything in movie theaters, you're totally lights off, so you're in a mode of ignorance, and then you will actually watch something and think you are that person and enjoy the whole thing. So, but then I was thinking about Bhagavatam, when you connect to the person that is actually there in the character, it could be all the Mahajanas, all the great people like Kunti Devi now. When she is saying that, and then when you actually feel that you are actually connected to her, you're present in that moment, the way you understand things is so much more different. Just want to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's very related to the point that you made about transferring over from being absorbed in the material energy and being absorbed in Krishna Lila. And all of the drama, all of the intrigue. I think we talked about it tonight in class. It's all there. But if one can get a taste for that, then we actually transfer ourselves to the spiritual world, even as we're here in the material world. We have no more interest in the material world, but we have to be interested somewhere. So that's what Prabhupada writes in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, that the transcendental literature is there to transfer our attention from the material world to the spiritual world. Nice. Sadhu?
Related to Ram's point about devotee association, I read this verse that Jadabharat said to King Rahugana. It's a famous verse. I think you quoted it once. But it ends with Vina Mahatpadara Jobhishekam, and it talks about unless one smears the dust of a pure devotee on his head, he can't realize the absolute truth. And it talks about, he can't realize the absolute truth even if he, becomes a brahmachari, even if he follows the principles of Avanaprastha, but only if he associates with a devotee, he'll be able to realize the absolute truth. So, yeah.
Rahuganai tapasana yati nachejaya nirvapanad grihadva nachandasanaiva jalagni suryarvina mahatpadarajopi. And poetically it says Raja means dust, Abhishek. So everyone knows what an Abhishek is, right? And then if you take an Abhishek with dust yourself, but what kind of dust? From the lotus feet of a pure devotee, and you take that and, okay, what are you doing? Abhishek. There's a way that when we're immersed in service to the pure devotees, such an important point, and it's the first point that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes to Sanatana Goswami when he's describing the process of devotional service, and the entry to it is the association of devotees. Where else in Prahlad's prayers is that said? Evam janam dipatitam bravavahi kupe hamam vikanam amayam prampatam prasangat krivatmasat sarashana bhaga I think the meter, started it wrong, so it makes it more difficult. Evam janam nipatitam brahvavahi kupe kama bikama manuyam prapatam prasangat kritva masat shurashina bhagavan grihita soham katam nu visrideta vabritya sevam. Anybody remember the translation? Yes. Vaiśeṣika.
My dear Lord, I was falling in the dark well of material existence, following my material desires one after another. But your devotee Narada saved me from this, and how can I give up his service?
Well, it's been an eventful weekend, hasn't it? I mean, you can't go anywhere without some kind of celebration, festival. It's been fantastic. And there's so much going on in our community. Devotees going off to school today was quite a revelation to hear all your talks. It just made us so satisfied to hear your realizations that you expressed as you're heading out for various places. And then last night we drove to the dark side of the moon. And there was a festival up there with the loudest drums I've ever heard in my life. I think it rearranged my biological situation. And then today we had that celebration, plus we had the Sunday program. My day started early. We had meetings. We've been having meetings every day. Some of them start at 5 a.m. because they're desperately reaching out to devotees all over the world just to light a fire of enthusiasm for the importance of distributing Srimad Bhagavatam and what it would make of our movement to reach 100,008 sets in 1 year by 2026. That's what we've been aiming for. And sometimes the fire just comes naturally and it sweeps through, and other times I feel like I'm striking a match and it keeps going out. And, you know, we never know what's going to happen next, but we do know that we're very fortunate. I saw a little baby. Which baby did I see? Somebody was holding a nice little baby. And I just said to the baby that you took birth on the right planet, in the right yuga. And in the right association. And we all have that great fortune that we have an opportunity to follow in the footsteps. Thanks for bringing up such a nice verse of a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, and the Guru Parampara. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is watching over us, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, Jagannath Das Babaji. These are our protectors. And if we just go on with doing the best we can with what we have right now, despite the fact, as Brajaras Bhavana said, there will be anomalies in this world, then we'll be more successful than we can imagine. And Prabhupada mentions in the light of the Bhagavat that there's a way in which we may not understand the full force of the association and the service we've done in this life until we actually leave this current situation. So it's greatly fortunate that we have the opportunity to work together. We've been given this little place in the universe just to use our intelligence to follow Krishna and his great representatives and to work together to help make other people fortunate. We should be able to at least convert Silicon Valley, right? That'd be nice. And who knows? We heard from Maharaj yesterday that it seemed impossible that the Soviet Union would collapse, although Prabhupada said just distribute books there, and a few went in, and then a few more, and then big truckloads went in. There's a whole history of it. I wrote about it in a book I wrote a few years ago called Our Family Business. The history of that is in there, in that book. It's worth reading. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Sri Panchatattva, Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Sri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, if you so desire, please encourage us from within our hearts to work together and to be very humble and tolerant of others' trespasses. Let us work together in service, especially keep our temple clean and free from clutter. That's the great sign of advancement in devotional service. Thank you for considering our requests. Om Tat Sat. And a footnote that when the shoe rack is perfectly aligned, all shoes look like they are in the rack and nobody just kicked them off their feet anywhere. And when you can't find anything out of place. Okay, now it's time to announce. I have something to say. This is from the task force and Kitchen recruiting. It's good. I already said some things. It's so important to clean. And I was thinking the other day, because somebody asked me, how can I be more enlivened in devotional service? And I didn't think my answer, I thought my answer was okay, because it was authorized. But then later on I was thinking, menial service is so powerful. There's a devotee I know in Japan, and he always tries to do some simple work so he has more time to preach. And one time he got a job cleaning public toilets. Did you hear what I said? Yeah. So he's an exalted soul and he's cleaning public toilets. So he told me on the side, he said, it's amazing. I feel like I have no material desires. Because of that menial service. And I was saying menial, manual, it comes from doing something with your hands. And taking up menial service is what made Lord Chaitanya attracted to Prataparudra Maharaj. He was a great king. He could have just kicked back and said, why doesn't Lord Chaitanya come to me? I'm the king. But he went out and he swept the road, which was a big deal at that time. It meant that he was going against the grain of society. He was being a bungi. So that's a really important point. And cleaning the kitchen, which is really the heart of the deity room. You can think of it that way. The kitchen is the place where we're serving Krishna. And consistency in doing that means we have to come up to a higher level. And kitchen cleaning is very dear to my heart.